The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family-owned and operated complete exterior remodeling business offering windows, siding, gutters, and more. windowworldofwesternma.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Real Pickles, a worker-owned cooperative in Greenfield producing organic fermented vegetables sourced from Northeast farms. More information at realpickles.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I am Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, a White House first, illustrated and retold for your littles. We'll hear from Rich Michelson and Eric Lesser about next year in the White House, which looks at the very first Seder held officially at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
And we'll become better writers ourselves, or at least more interestingly descriptive, as word nerd Emily Brewster shows us words for very specific shapes.
And in Shelburne,
or is it Buckland?
Either way, many verses are headed to Franklin County by one of the area's most well-known poets in a brand new book.
They say that Turner's has changed. I'm not so sure.
There's been many a night in the bars there that I'm not so sure either. It's funny because our word nerd guest who is on the show with you today is one of the co-owners of the Rendezvous. And our other guest for the show today is your good buddy who you grew up in the same neighborhood with but didn't know, Rich Michelson. So it's...
Oh, is he promoting his children's book?
Yes.
I should start writing children's books.
No, it takes forever.
So few words and so much time.
Yes, so much editing for 32 pages and then much time.
The difference is people buy your words.
Is that true?
Martina Espada has published more than 20 books as a poet, editor, essayist, and translator, including Floaters, which was the winner of the National Book Award in 2021, A Mayan Astronomer in Hell's Kitchen, which is the one that really turned me on to his work, and The Republic of Poetry, which was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize.
His many honors include the Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize, the Shelley Memorial Award, and a Guggenheim Fellowship. Martin was born in Brooklyn, but is a UMass Amherst professor, and now lives in Western Mass. He'll celebrate his brand new book of poetry, Jailbreak of Sparrows, in his adopted hometown of Shelburne Falls this Saturday, April 5th at 6 p.m. at Raven Bookstore.
Raven Bookstore on the Buckland side of Shelburne Falls.
Is it?
If we're going to get into the complex geography of the area,
which we want to.
Right. Shelburne Falls is a kind of mythical place that consists of half Shelburne and half Buckland. And you cross the bridge to go from Shelburne to Buckland. You're still in Shelburne Falls, and that's where you find Raven Used Books, which is actually in the old mill building.
Oh, right,
okay.
right.
By where Lamson was.
Yeah. There's going to be more local lore in this conversation very shortly here, but let's start out with a poem from your brand new collection called He Could Sing, But He Couldn't Fly. And can you give us a little bit of the backstory behind this one, Martina Espada?
Yes. As you know, I was a legal services lawyer years ago. I was a supervisor of a program called Su Clínica Legal, a legal services program for low-income Spanish-speaking tenants from Chelsea, right across the Tobin Bridge from Boston. I think this poem is relevant today for one reason in particular. Mass deportation requires mass collaboration. As legal services lawyers, we had to wrestle with the ethics of representing undocumented people who came to us because they were in danger of being evicted, had conditions cases, but the majority of them were refugees of war, fleeing Guatemala, fleeing El Salvador. These were Reagan's wars. And so the word came down that we had to stop representing undocumented people because we were bending, if not breaking, the federal rules that governed our funding. And this is how we dealt with it. The poem is called He Could Sing, But He Couldn't Fly. We heard about the memo. Legal aid lawyers had to ask for papers, a green card, policing what the law called illegal aliens, as if they had antennas sprouting from their heads and searching the air, sputtering in tongues from another planet, choking on oxygen. This would account for their coughing, not the oil tanks empty of oil. Now, if the tenant says, I have no papers, say, oh, I'm very sorry, in Spanish. Now, Yet the landlord heaves the clothes out the window, jabbering about rent like a parakeet startled by a cat. If he sneaks into the bedroom at night and wheezes like a lovesick vampire, say, "Ay, señora, lo siento mucho," swing open the door of the office and point to the courthouse down the street. When the boss would ask, "Does she have papers?" the lawyer, who lied his way out of a date with the firing squad on a hill of skulls in Chile, would smile, creasing his unshaven face as if to say, "Here's a piñata and you'll never break with that stick." When the boss would ask, "Does she have papers?" I became a wise guy pugilist, 2-ton Tony Galento of the movies after the canary who sang to the cops dropped from a rooftop. He could sing, but he couldn't fly. Years before 2-ton Tony, the brawler, who trained on beer and sausage, spoke his wise guy wisdom on songbirds in the movies, the newspaper boys sang of Abe Relis, Kid Twist, so called for his dexterity with an ice pick in the ear. The night before, Kid Twist would testify against Anastasia and La Cosa Nostra. He plunged from the window of the Half Moon Hotel in Coney Island as half a dozen detectives played cards and saw nothing. The headlines called him the canary who could sing but couldn't fly. I was no Kid Twist. I knew my mother's stories of gangsters and revelation, informers and crucifixion in Brooklyn. I would not twist the ice pick or drop it to sing of illegal aliens, kin somehow green as the invaders on the screen of my first color TV. There was Spanish in my ear, telling me of boys in green uniforms who juggled green mangoes with bodies beheaded at their feet. There was testimonio in my ear, telling me of flight over mountains and deserts to be here at last, here in the land of ice spreading across windows like white lace curtains. They could fly, but they couldn't sing.
That is the poet Martin Espada here at the very beginning of National Poetry Month, a National Book Award winner, reading a poem from his brand new book, Jailbreak of Sparrows. And luckily, Martin, nothing of that poem that has to do with your actual history in legal aid resonates with what is going on in contemporary life in the United States right now.
Why would it? Everything has changed now.
Yes, everything is better now, he said blankly.
We have fixed everything. There are no problems.
The federal government will not ask us to do their job.
In fact, there's a whole section of this book that reads like a historical document documenting all of the times that the state has come in and killed citizens.
An ongoing theme in your poetry for years, Martin, and we live in a very interesting time right now. And you have fought these battles both from a legal perspective as a lawyer and as from a poetic perspective. So what are the tools at your disposal as a poet that you might believe are more effective than the legal tools that maybe have been at your disposal in a previous life?
Well, my snarky response would be to say that as a poet, I will fly below the radar and have nothing to worry about.
As I will say, another guest on today's show is currently being sued by the Trump administration with an executive order. And I won't out them, but you can put those dots together if you listen to today's show.
Okay, well, that would be good for book sales.
Yeah.
But more to the point, we're looking at a time in our history where words increasingly become divorced from meaning, especially when used by the powerful. They drain the blood from words. Our job, our responsibility as poets is to put the blood back in the words, to speak with meaning, and thereby completely contradict the whole impulse, the whole direction of language as used by the powerful.
We're speaking with Martin Espada, who is recently a National Book Award winning poet. He is a professor at UMass Amherst, and he is celebrating his new book of poems, Jailbreak of Sparrows, this Saturday, April 5th at 6 p.m. in its adopted hometown of Shelburne Falls at the Raven Bookstore. My adopted hometown is Turners Falls, Massachusetts. And Martin, you have a particularly interesting poem for local lore in general.
Yes, and this is one of a number of poems inspired by my wife, Lauren. And What you have to understand about Lauren is that she looks quite innocent until she opens her mouth. And then at times, all hell breaks loose, as was the case in this situation. She was actually reading in the persona of a man who had lost his job at a local steel mill in her story. And it was nothing like the modest school teacher standing at the front of the room. This provoked a reaction. This all took place at a place you know well in Turners Falls, a bar called the Blue. My beloved, the blasphemer, causes a scuffle at the bar, Turners Falls, Massachusetts, January 2019. My beloved stands at the mic in the bar room on 3rd Street. The Straw Dog Writers Guild gathers to listen. They see a school teacher in her black frame eyeglasses, in her green dress embroidered with flowers and birds on branches, ready to gather all the children from the village to the red schoolhouse of the imagination. Then she opens her mouth. Now she is Cal, a man with the stump of an arm, who lost his job at the steel mill, who lost his arm, some say, at the steel mill, who crushes a case of beer and curses the liberals at the high school who voted to change the nickname of the football team from the Indians to Big Blue. The boils of obscenity plague his tongue, Christ and copulation. He is what my mother would call a blasphemer. 2 women watch from the bar, knitting and huddling over martinis. They clutch their balls of yarn like 2 cats groggy on catnip, hissing at the blasphemies uttered by the mouth of my beloved. Calls for quiet go unheard. One stalks out, leaving the other to stare in astonishment at the school teacher channeling the voice of a one-armed, foul-mouthed ex-steelworker who used to root for the Indians every Saturday afternoon. No spittle, no growling, no demon defying the holy water of the exorcist, only the voice she uses to quiet the children when she says, "All eyes on me." The dipsomaniac's martini tips in her hand, leaking on the bar, the olive swirling around in the glass like an eyeball in the beaker of a mad scientist. Disgusting, she proclaims. The president of the Straw Dog Writers Guild, not quite 5 feet tall herself, approaches. Filth, cries the inebriate, who spins off her bar stool to slug the president of the Straw Dog Writers Guild. My beloved, the blasphemer, levitates her words over the scuffle at the bar. The Catholic school, where she taught years ago, fired her for writing a poem about a broken vibrator, a violation of the morals clause in her contract, since masturbation is a mortal sin. This is a scuffle in a bar. The accuser, not the church or the head of school, but a woman fumbling her yarn, slamming the last of her martini on the way out, screeching blasphemies. My beloved, the blasphemer, will be heard. All eyes on her, even the olive in the glass. The heretic preaches from the pulpit and the congregation sways. They leave the bar eager to testify to the words levitating over the scuffle.
That is poet Martin Espada, a very localized poet here for the Fabulous 413, taking place in a bar near and dear to me, right down the street from where I live in Turners Falls.
I wanted to ask you one more thing about your prosody, just because I feel like your form of poems, or the way that you see your poems on the page, is, however accidentally, a little bit of a bait and switch. It ends up making me feel more like I'm expecting prose, but in the reading, it's absolutely poetry. And I just want you to talk a little bit about that little oval in the middle of the Venn diagram where your work sits.
It sounds suspiciously like math. Basically, there are a couple of ways in which a poet can bait and switch. You know, if I'm writing in long lines on the page, it looks like a paragraph. Trust me, it isn't. They're long lines of poetry. and they have music in them. And you can hear the music when I read the poem out loud. There is a difference between hearing the poet read the poem out loud and reading it on the page, which is why I advocate live readings, and I advocate people showing up for live readings like the one on Saturday at Raven Hughes Books in Shelburne Falls on the Buckland side. But there's another bait and switch. It comes with what we know in poetry as the turn, where a poem has you leaning in one direction and then leaning suddenly in the other direction. Think of it as driving a car and you hit a patch of ice and then you swerve. That is where a poem often gets its emotional impact. I'd like to read you an example of what I'm talking about. Going back to my legal services days in Chelsea, here's a poem called "The City Wears a Coat to Bed." The white army of winter spreads across the city. Boilers and radiators die in their sleep, their skin cold to the touch in the morning. The city wears a coat to bed. The city watches the wraith of breath rise in the kitchen. On Friday afternoons, the judges slip off their black robes and drive home. There is no light in the windows of the courthouse. There is no one to read the affidavit or sign the injunction to shove into the landlord's hand so that heat courses through the heart of the boiler and the looping hard veins of the radiator again. No one to hear the tenant's story translated, her sons and daughters shivering in their coats on the mattress, snot on their sleeves. The judges on the landlord home, or stopping in a bar on the way home. She tells me instead, a lawyer who speaks Spanish, and explains in Spanish why there will be no heat this weekend, why there is no one at the courthouse to listen. And still, she pours her story into my ears till they swell to bursting. I walk her to the doorway of the office. The secretary is in the bathroom, the office space heater in the corner. Suddenly, I am steering the tenant out the door with the space heater in her arms. And she says, gracias, over and over. And I say, okay, okay, knowing the secretary would yell my name louder, and that time a drunk with a lightning scarred his belly charged for the door, naked, but for his socks and his Salvation Army blanket. The secretary would not miss the office space heater till Monday. I am the hero of this story, riding the bus home across the bridge, till I remember the words I should have said about the glowing coils too close to the mattress, how every week another fire rolls the smoldering wraith of winter through the bedroom as sons and daughters sleep, how every week EMTs tuck white sheets over bodies dead as a landlord's boiler. I will dream with eyes open of windows, the coils of space heaters and the coils of mattresses glowing in every window.
That is Martina Espada from the new book, Jailbreak of Sparrows. I did like the swerve in that one.
That's the turn.
You're a UMass professor of poetry, so people pay a lot of money to be able to pick your brain like this about what makes poetry for Martina Espada. So we're really lucky that we get to do that here and share that with our listeners. And we can hear Martina Espada read from this new book of poems this Saturday, April 5th, 6 p.m. at the Raven Bookstore in Shelburne Falls. It's called Jailbreak of Sparrows. Thank you so much, Martina Espada.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, a momentous occasion now in picture book form as we talk with the folks involved with Next Year in the White House, which talks about the very first White House Seder.
But up next, fun and obscure ways to describe the shapes of things with word nerd Emily Brewster.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by UMass Amherst School of Public Policy. Admissions now open for graduate programs in 2025. Learn how to become a changemaker at umass.edu/SPP.
Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam-Webster, our dictionary in Springfield. We're going to play an obscure word guessing game.
Exactly.
Yay.
Yes.
Merriam-Webster has a lot of fun word-related games on your website. So
Yes.
if this is the kind of thing that you like, you should check out merriam-webster.com.
Yes.
Oh, there's so many games. An educational way to have a good time and possibly avoid responsibilities.
Everybody needs to check out just a little bit every once in a while. It's called self-care.
Totally.
So these are obscure words, you're saying? I've been using the word erstwhile the last couple days because of the Poets Laureate that we have had on. I'm hoping to bring that one back to prominence.
I like it.
Yeah, erstwhile is a good one.
And
yes,
it, of course,
but
is a type of cheese. I don't know. It just sounds like it could be.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, really. I am curious what erst means by itself when not combined with while.
we define erst very helpfully as an adverb that means erstwhile.
If only we knew somebody who could
Yes.
fix that.
So helpful. But it does come from the Middle English word erest, meaning earliest or formerly.
Uh-huh.
And the reason it's defined this way is that the word erstwhile is significantly more common than the word erst.
So give us your quiz, Emily Brewster.
All right, yeah, the words that we are talking about today, it's a set of words that I have been collecting for years. All these words have to do with something that resembles or is shaped like an object.
Sound-wise, we have onomatopoeia, when a word sounds like the thing that it does. What is the word for when a word is visually representative?
If only they did that. They don't actually do that trick.
Oh.
These are mostly technical words that are used instead of saying shaped like a. For example, the first one I'm going to give you, I think you will be able to guess the meaning of without any trouble at all. The word is alligatoroid.
So it is a shape that is shaped like an alligator?
Well, it's resembling an alligator.
Resembling an alligator?
Yeah.
It is not the type of
So-
steroids you take that are based on alligator steroids to help you maybe become a better hitter in baseball?
Alligator steroids? Is this
Alligator.
a thing?
I just made it up. Alligatoroid. I'm going to alligatoroid out. Finally be a designated
you
hitter
could have gone
that
a
can
different
hit.
direction with this, and I'm really glad you did.
I mean, like, that's not where my brain went. And my brain went to sitting terribly because your skin is like alligators in the wrong place for you to be sitting.
Ew.
Well, the nice thing about this term is that it really is broad. So resembling an alligator could mean in voraciousness or in strength. Like this creature approached me with alligatoroid determination.
I think that oid is an interesting one to use, though, because of like Khalees had hemorrhoid, I had steroid. I mean, then there's trapezoid and things like that. But
Yeah.
alligatorzoid to me would sound a little bit more like you knew it was a shape.
A lot of these actually have a different ending. This one is also for an animal, though. It is ursiform.
Oh.
And that's your clue. What do you
But-
think ursiform means? URSIFORM.
Like a bear.
Yep.
Yeah, having the
Bear-shaped.
shape of a bear. Yeah.
I just have to interrupt you here because I was, while we were on vacation, I was talking about how somebody was putting together a bare bones presentation. And wouldn't it be funny?
Ursa bones.
No, if you just like had a presentation where on the table there was just like a skeleton of a bear. This is my bare bones presentation. I'm going to do that.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so that is Ursa, what was it? Ursified? Ursa something?
Ursiform.
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 I love that.
Yeah.
Wonder Twin powers activate!
Shape of Ursa.
Yep.
Right. Okay, viperiform. VIPERIFORM.
Snake.
Snaky.
Yeah, resembling a viper.
I also
It is
watched the
harder.
Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, the Jackie Chan Kung Fu movie while I was on vacation.
Never use the snake fist unless you must, and that's an order.
Did you see anything that could be described as viperiform?
Oh, absolutely. And the Kung Fu that I study, one of the modes is snake form. So there you go. Viperiform, I'm going to call it from now on.
There you go.
Yeah, you should. It's impressive.
Not when you watch me do it. I threw my neck out on the couch watching Snake in the Eagle's Shadow.
Because we're old now.
That's how impressive I am.
It's a birthday
Wow.
present to yourself.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Okay, here's
God.
another one. A cervuline. This is ACERVULINE.
A cervuline.
I think you should seek medical attention if you have restless legs after taking a cervuline.
Sure, but the word means resembling little heaps.
A serve? Is that mean little heaps? Like I'll have a serving of this, like mashed potatoes?
And honestly, my brain couldn't get around the fact that they start with Acer, which is the name of a computer company.
Oh, yeah, right.
Acers. No.
Latin acervus means heap. Huh. Yeah, I didn't promise that all of these were useful,
Gotcha.
really. All right, anchinoid.
Is it about the fused lizard, the Ankylosaurus?
No,
No.
this is a C, Anconoid.
No idea.
No idea.
It's resembling an elbow.
But what?
But it's
Wouldn't
closer
it be-
to ankle.
I know,
and-
elbow-anoid instead of... I'm elbow-anoid now.
I know, isn't that so? This is why these words charm me. They are basically useless, though, because if you use it in a conversation, no one is going to know what you are talking about.
Or maybe you're doing that on purpose.
Right,
Because there's so
which-
many words you're not allowed to use anymore.
Yeah.
The word ancon, A-N-C-O-N, means bracket or elbow, with elbow in this case being something that's used as an architectural support.
Ah, okay.
But the word ankle must come from this too, right?
I don't think so. Let me
Really?
look that up.
My ankle's a pretty good bracket most of the time.
No, it looks like the word ankle is from the Germanic side of the language and is not from Latin. It's been part of the English language since before the 12th century.
Oh.
What are some other obscure words that have to do with shapes?
All right, this one is faviform, F-A-V-I-F-O-R-M.
I was going with fava beans there for a minute.
No.
And a nice Chianti.
It's resembling a honeycomb in structure.
So if you have a honeycomb hideout, you could call it faviform.
Faviform.
Hungry for a big honey taste.
Faviform.
Latin favus means honeycomb. But again, we have this Latin word to describe what it's shaped like or what it resembles, but we don't use the related Latin word to refer to the actual thing. We call it a honeycomb. In some ways, this is just a really good example of the distance that Latin is used to put between people and their words.
And also, it sounds too close to 5, and honeycombs are hexagons.
Yeah.
My brain would not think that that was a word that referred to anything with 6.
All right, I'm going to give you a pair.
Yes.
Heliciform and spiraliform. They mean the same thing.
Like
something to do-
helix,
Yeah.
like spiral
Exactly.
for
That
helix.
is what they mean, spiral.
Oh, I would have
Yeah.
gone with the sun for the helioform because of like the sun Helios and all that. But
no, like double helix, like
Right.
the things that build us.
Mr. DNA, where did you come from? From your blood.
That's right. Spiral is Latin, helix is Greek, but traveled through Latin to get to English. All right, this one, I really like this one. I don't know why. It's spiciform, S-P-I-C-I-F-O-R-M.
oh, it's not like sporty or baby or
No.
posh.
It has nothing to do with capsaicin. I'm thinking more planty.
It means shaped like a spike.
Oh,
Oh.
But it is used in botany. So there are plant parts that are shaped like a spike, for example.
they couldn't have made it with a K just to make it easy for everybody.
No.
No,
What
they
about
could
English
not.
is easy?
know.
What have you not learned from this whole series?
Throw us a spike once in a while.
I feel like this one, I don't think that insults are really something that we need to acquire more of, but this one could work as one. The word is limaciform.
Is it when you lie around on the couch watching Snake in the Eagle's Shadow and your neck is injured all
Yeah,
of a sudden?
maybe. Resembling a slug.
See? Nailed it. Knew it.
It's a hut. It's the huts.
It's the huts.
Yeah, the limaciform jaba.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to add that to Wikipedia.
There you should.
Turricular. Turricular.
It's like a turret.
Yeah. It means shaped like a tower.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah. The Latin word
Turricular.
turricula means small tower.
Cool.
Flabellate.
But it's not beans. That's flagellae.
Flabellate. Flabellate.
Is it like the pill form of Ozempic?
No. Flabellate.
It's resembling a fan in shape.
Flabellate?
Flabellate. Yeah.
Like
So,
a
like,
fan you'd
Apparently
fan?
Latin flabellum means fan.
So, like, scallops would be flabellate. Scallop shells would be
Scallop
flabellate.
shell, yes.
Huh.
Oh, what a lovely flabellate shell.
There is a flabellate form in my Kung Fu martial arts as well. You do a whole weapons form with a fan.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think you need to bring these words into that sphere.
I know, I'll start saying them, and no one will talk to me more than they already don't.
All right. How about these are synonymous? Bulliform and bullet. Bullate, I guess you would say. Bulliform or bullate. Not related to weaponry of any kind.
Right. But also not related to cows.
True. It means shaped like a bubble.
Ooh, bully it. That's cute.
Oh, like ebullient.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Ah.
That's right.
That's a cute one.
That is a cute one. Like Jigglypuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw a reel of 5 people comparing what Pokemon's names were in their languages and the translations.
Oh, wow, fun.
The French ones were like not like anybody else's and not at all related. It's great.
Names of Pokemons in
English,
German,
French,
Korean, Japanese, and Russian.
Charizard,
Glurak.
Dracofeu.
We had viperiform, but we also have crotaliform, which means
Like a frog? No, that's not.
Is it a lizard?
it's resembling a rattlesnake.
Oh, that's specific.
I was close.
Yeah. You can be like viperiform. Oh, no, actually, it is crotaliform.
5 deadly venoms.
Snake style, known for its incredible agility.
All right. The next two are culinary. Piriform. Piriform.
Is it like those Pirelli, like long tube Italian things?
Oh, I like those. No.
Spinning? No, that's French.
What is it?
Shaped like a pear.
Oh.
And then there is pisiform, which is Pisiform.
It's like leaning over a little bit.
This one is resembling a pea in size or shape. A little pea. So put a, they say like apply a pea-sized amount of something. They could say a pisiform amount.
I love that.
This lotion
That
to
one
your hand.
also sounds cute.
I've got one more for you, and I have saved this one because I'm pretty sure it's got to be a favorite. The word is natiform, Natiform.
Well, it's not like the bug, because that would be with a G-N-A-T.
Yeah.
But it's not just resembling something in nature, not something natural, a natural form.
I give up.
Resembling the buttocks.
Yes.
So peaches are natiform.
Yeah.
Natiform. Where did we get the nata from?
Latin natis or natis, Natis, means buttock.
Oh, good. I can't wait to incorporate that one more into my life as well. Guiatiform, as the kids these days say.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, it's crazy.
Why?
Oh, well, thank you for helping us eschew obfuscation, Emily Brewster, and learning about all these rare words for kind of common things that no one uses anymore.
Yeah, but that you can use. They are available there for you, speakers of the language.
Yes.
You may apply these and generate confusion among your listeners, surely.
Emily Brewster will be joining us for 413 Day on Sunday, April 13th. Oh, I just saw that you added that to the script when I was improvising around it. If you have a question for her there or on our show here, you can email us at thefab413@nepm.org.
But if you come to the event, then you get to meet her in person, which is the best. And now we get to await Elijah at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue with a book about the very first official White House Seder. Author Rich Michelson and former Eric Lesser join us.
You're listening to The Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the Handle Factory Community Clay Studio in Shelburne Falls, offering youth summer programs and spring adult classes in pottery and sculpture. HandleFactory.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
At sundown on Saturday, April 12th, Jewish people worldwide will celebrate the first night of Passover. Next year, in the White House, Barack Obama's first presidential Seder is a new Passover children's book by award-winning author Richard Michelson and Caldecott honor-winning illustrator E.B. Lewis. The picture book introduces readers to the true story of how a small Passover Seder dinner on the 2008 presidential campaign trail inspired then-Senator Barack Obama to bring this meaningful tradition into the White House for the first time. And we are joined by the book's author, Richard Michelson of Northampton's R. Michelson Gallery fame, erstwhile poet Laureate of the city of Northampton. Rich has written many books for children, teens, and adults. His books have been listed among the 10 best of the year by the New York Times, Publishers Weekly, and the New Yorker. He's received a National Jewish Book Award. We have another National Book Award winner on the show today, too, your friend, Martin Espada. We are also joined by Eric Lesser, a former Massachusetts state senator and Obama White House aide. He's probably the reason you've ever heard of the phrase East-West Rail or West-East Rail. In his time on Beacon Hill, he is currently senior counsel at the law firm Wilmer Hale and busy taking time away from your schedule of suing people to talk with us about this true story. This book is great, first of all. I mean,
Thank you.
As a children's book and as a story, it's wonderful. And it's wonderful that so many of our local connections have so much to do with it. And it's also being published by the PJ Library Association, which has very strong connections to the Valley as well with the Harold Grinspoon Foundation. But can I call you Senator Eric Lesser?
Retired, but yeah.
Retired
you can
Senator
call me Eric.
Eric.
I think we're on a first name basis.
Yes, I think we are.
Yeah. If
Eric,
you're calling him Senator, you're calling me Laureate. That's it. That's it. Otherwise, it's Eric and Rich.
we'll get to how you got involved in this story in a little bit there, Rich. But Eric, this is a wonderful story of your celebrating Passover on the campaign trail without your family. Can you tell us about the true story behind this wonderful story?
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. It's so fun to talk about this, and happy Passover to everyone coming
Hag
up.
Sameach, right?
Hag Sameach.
Sameach.
Well
Yes,
done.
yes.
Well done.
I got a lot of Jewish friends.
So good. So the story really begins back in 2008 during Obama's, at the time, long shot presidential campaign. I was a very junior aide that traveled with him. My job was basically to keep track of all the luggage and the logistics for him.
Let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
I can't let the luggage thing go without saying what is it? What is in Obama's luggage?
That's a state secret. Still classified.
Okay, all right.
In the book, we have his PJs in honor of PJ Library. He's traveling with his PJs so he can get ready for
I
bed.
didn't make that connection, but I'm
Yes.
glad I have now.
So we were in Pennsylvania in April of 2008, the night of the first Seder. And usually I would come home to Longmeadow. I grew up in Longmeadow, right next door to where we are right now, to do Seder with my family. But the logistics were just too hard. We were traveling nonstop. So we decided, I was traveling with a group of other young aides, a guy named Herbie Ziskin and Arun Chaudhry, who are also featured in the book. We basically decided that we would celebrate, the three of us, no matter where we were going to be. And it turned out we were going to be in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So I mentioned this to then Senator Obama when we were traveling on one of our flights. I said, hey, Passover's coming up. Arun, Herbie, and I are going to be doing this Seder if you want to join. And, he actually said he would, but I didn't think much of it. I thought it was kind of being polite.
Yeah.
There was kind of a lot going on. Fast forward, the night of the first Seder, we found a windowless basement conference room at the Harrisburg Sheridan in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And we kind of threw together ad hoc the supplies.
That is, he stole the supplies.
Exactly.
All right,
Yeah,
That doesn't
let's
come
get
across in
to
the
it.
book. Did you steal them? Where did they come from?
Well, my cousin actually stole them. Yeah. So this is actually kind of a fun story. So we began the day in Philadelphia, and Obama was going to be doing a whistle-stop train tour from Philadelphia to Harrisburg, making 6 or 7 stops along the way. My job was to load all the luggage onto the U-Haul and drive it ahead so that people would have their suitcases when they arrived at the hotel. Before I left Philly, I called my cousin, who was a student at UPenn, and I said to him, hey, I need some supplies for a Seder tonight. So he ran over to the Hillel, broke into the Hillel, and grabbed a box of matzah, a bottle of Manischewitz wine, a can of macaroons, and a handful of Maxwell House Haggadahs.
We waited to publish this book until statute of limitations have passed.
So we were all gathered in this kind of ad hoc setting in Harrisburg, and then all of a sudden Obama poked his head in and said he wanted to join, and he sat down with us, and we get to the end of the Seder, and there's a tradition where everybody raises their glass and they say, next year in Jerusalem. So we raised our glass. We said next year in Jerusalem. We all put our glasses down, and then he raised his glass and he said next year in the White House. We all said, all right, amen. Fast forward a year later, he's now president. He's in the White House, and he was walking by my kind of little cubby desk one day, and he said to me, hey, Lesser, are we doing the Seder? And I kind of got a little startled, and I was a little sheepish. So I don't know, sir, are we? And he looked at me kind of with a little bit of a grin, and he goes, well, last year I said next year in the White House, and it's next year, and we're in the White House, so we're going to do the Seder.
That's great. Because this was a historic event. This was the first time the White House had ever celebrated the Seder. And we're speaking with former Senator Eric Lesser, who is one of the main players in the book, Next Year in the White House, Barack Obama's first presidential Seder, written by our friend Richard Michelson.
Actually, one of the cool things about it, and I think one of the important stories that Rich really captures about what happened, is Obama was insistent that the group that meet in the White House be the same group that was with him in Pennsylvania. And I think a piece of history for people to appreciate, when the Seder happened in 2008, it was one of the absolute lowest points of Obama's career. This was during the Pennsylvania primary. People were expecting him to lose the primary. He ended up losing Pennsylvania handily to Hillary Clinton. This is right around when the Jeremiah Wright controversy happened.
His former pastor.
Back in 2008. So he remembered that, and he was insistent that the group that was with him at a low point was also the group that was going to be with him at the high point. So Arun, Herbie, and I were kind of in charge of corralling and organizing the Seder with the same kind of core group. It was everyone fit around one table, and we did it all 8 years of his presidency from 2009 through 2016.
Rich, how do you enter the story? How do you get picked to write this story of this historic event that happened at the White House? You being from Northampton, as I mentioned, Northampton's erstwhile poet laureate.
Well, just lucky, I guess. I picked up the phone one day. Well, do we pick up phones anymore? I got an email one day from the Grinspoon Foundation, the PJ Library. Eric is friendly with Harold Grinspoon, as am I, and Harold Grinspoon, of course, is the force behind this wonderful organization. And Harold knew the story, thought it would make a good children's book. And the committee thought that I might be the right person to write it. You know, a lot of my books have to do with race relations. PJ has been very good to me. I think this is my 6th book of theirs that they're giving away. I think they gave away 30,000 copies earlier. Well, not early this month, last month, because we're in a new month.
We're in a new month, the month of the poets.
Yeah. So they have my book Across the Alley, which is about a black Christian child and a Jewish child who aren't allowed to play with each other. You know, there was my book about Martin Luther King and Abraham Joshua Heschel.
Who's one of my heroes, by the way. Not just Martin Luther King, but Abraham Joshua Heschel, who I think is a wonderful Jewish philosopher, scholar.
Amazing,
and, his
man.
view of wonder has inspired my entire life.
So they knew my interests, and so they gave me an opportunity to see if I wanted to write this book. And I said, maybe. I didn't want to accept the job unless I knew I could do a book that would be interesting for adults and for children.
Right.
So I said, give me some time to think about it and set me up with Eric, because I want to talk about, to him, the little side things that aren't necessarily newsworthy, or the things that make the story pop.
What were some of them in this, Rich Michelson, that really popped for you?
Well, every a Seder can't end until the children find the afikomen.
Yes, there's the hidden matzah.
There's the hidden matzah, and then they get a gift. So the gift was a chew toy for the dog Bo. That's already telling me, okay, now I can put a dog in the story. So, there's not a story for children or adults in the world that doesn't get improved by putting a dog in.
That's 100% correct. What's funny is that, and you said you wanted it to be good for children and adults. For the adult part in the back, it goes a little bit into the, okay, we took some creative license about when Bo entered the White House. Not actually there for that first Passover, but was there for subsequent Passovers. So, poetic license.
He was a week late, but the chew toy did come, and that's the sort of thing that lets me know, okay, I'm going to involve Malia and Sasha. We're going to start with the girls because, we want to get kids involved. They're not interested in 3 young 20-year-old males in the basement of a hotel with no windows, right? Okay, so that's the story, and we can start. You open the book, and you see the 2 young girls, Malia and Sasha, and the tables being set, and then Obama comes in, and he's then in the one telling the story of how this came to be. But he left me with some amazing props. like the original Maxwell House Haggadah that is shown in the back of the book.
That's the stuff that's great for grown-ups. The recipe for the flourless golden apricot cake.
Yeah, every children's book needs a recipe
I
for
think
a
so
cake
too.
in
Dogs
it.
and recipes, you really
Got
hit the nail on the head.
So I called back PJ Library and they said, sign me up.
And we are talking about the PJ Library published book next year in the White House, Barack Obama's first presidential Seder by Richard Michelson, who joins us. And the actual story is inspired by former Senator Eric Lesser, who appears both in actual picture form, sitting next to President Barack Obama at that first Seder, and also in illustrated form. How do you feel being illustrated now?
I'm just relieved Rich made me thinner.
Well, you didn't do it.
Yeah, or EB. EB did. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, a funny
because the
story.
children's book puts on 20 pounds, they usually say. Yeah.
Funny story about that. So EB, who's so talented, I mean, the pictures are just so beautiful.
Yeah.
He actually flew down to D.C., and Herbie, Arun lives in Europe, so it was a little hard logistically for him. But Herbie and I did some posing for EB so that he could get the pictures just right.
This was a historic event. Easter has been celebrated in the White House for many, many generations, and the Christmas, I think even goes back even farther. What did it mean for you as a Jewish member of the president's staff to have initiated this tradition?
It was surreal. I have a memory, actually. My grandmother was still alive at the time of the first Seder at the White House, and there was a big picture afterward that was kind of splashed all over the news. And my aunt was down in Brooklyn. She lived at a retirement home in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, and my aunt was with her for Passover and showed her the picture of all of us. And my grandmother, who at the time was almost 90 years old, kind of looked at it and said, only in America would something like that happen. And I think that kind of sums it up. One of the things that was, I think, uniquely American about it was President Obama's intentionality around connecting the ancient Israelite story of freedom in the book of Exodus with the more modern American story of the civil rights movement and emancipation from slavery. After we would finish reading the Haggadah and completed the Exodus story, the president would have everybody go around and read section by section of the Emancipation Proclamation.
Wow.
A way to quite literally tie the stories together.
Right. Two peoples who came from slavery got to celebrate this holiday about emancipation from slavery in the White House.
Which was, ironically, built by slaves.
Exactly.
So, it really puts a fine point on it.
On a lighter note, I have a fun memory of the White House chef would prepare the meal, and everybody submitted recipes to the chef from their family. One of the participants submitted gefilte fish, and I have a very surreal memory of this very fancy little piece of gefilte fish getting put on White House dishware. And I was just laughing because, from the shtetl and the old country where they used to make gefilte fish, no one could have imagined it would be served on a White House dish covered in gold leaf. So.
Did you have Manischewitz at that first Passover at the White House?
We did have Manischewitz,
wow.
and we kept the Maxwell House Haggadahs. So we, old school.
This tradition continued throughout the entirety of the Obama White House, the Passover Seder. Anyone know currently whether or not this is still being celebrated in the White House or will be this Passover, April 12th?
It's a good question. Neither President Trump in his first term nor President Biden in his term celebrated it this way. There were different ways that both presidents recognized the holiday, but this kind of family-style Seder in the White House in this way has not happened since President Obama.
I know that PJ Library's mission and the Harold Grinspoon Foundation's mission is to make sure that a lot of these books honoring Jewish tradition can be easily received by folks. Where are these books available? You mentioned, Rich, earlier 30,000 of these books were published?
30,000 were given away by PJ Library. They partnered with Penguin Random House, Crown Books, who did a hardcover edition of the book, which is available at bookstores everywhere, online. It's doing very well as well commercially as opposed to the PJ Library edition.
Rich, I also want to mention, as I've said, that you're poet laureate of the city of Northampton, that you on April 4th will be at the Forbes Library in a poetry reading with our friend Leslie Newman. You're also at the Stockbridge Library on April 5th. And former Senator Eric Lesser, as I mentioned, now you're a senior counsel at the law firm of Wilmer and Hale. Any thoughts on the current political situation, or have you retired from weighing in on
We gotta go.
What about East-West Rail?
Well, we were having such a nice time. We don't have to bring up politics.
That was something that, I think anybody who knows about your political career thinks that East-West Rail or West-East Rail and Eric Lesser are synonymous. What do you think the over-under is, given the current fiscal situation with the federal government, on that being feasible?
I appreciate you asking. I do think it's still going to happen. The governor's committed to it. The state legislature's committed to it. We've got, both Congressman Neal and Jim McGovern are still focused on it. The money has been allocated already for the 2 new Amtrak routes, which are going to start, I believe, in 2029. So we're getting there. It's a precarious, obviously, with the current environment, but I do think it will happen.
Well, it was not lost on me that while we were having this conversation, I could hear the lonesome train whistle of the trains at Union Station around the corner from
There
here.
will be more. There will be more, yeah.
And this book is fantastic. Whether or not you have celebrated Passover yourself, it's a wonderful piece of history. It's a great way to introduce your children and your grown-ups to some of the real history behind the Passover as celebrated in the Bible, as well as the real history of the celebration of Passover at the White House back in 2008. The book is called Next Year in the White House, Barack Obama's first presidential Seder, written by Richard Michelson, who's been joining us, and inspired by the true story of former Senator and White House aide Eric Lesser. Thank you both so much for coming in.
Thank you, Monty.
Thanks so much.
And you're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
On the next Fabulous 413, Northampton is about to dedicate 2 full days to helping and encouraging kids, tweens, and teens on their creative journey. RISE Fest is an acronym for Resilience in Self-Expression. We'll hear from one of the founders of the event, author-illustrator Jarrett J. Krasoska.
We'll also have live music Thursday to get us songs a day early with Ari Hest, who you're hearing right now. He'll showcase his 2 decades of songs at the Parlor Room on April 3rd and maybe give us insight to writing so prolifically from his project that completes a new song every 2 weeks.
And our weekly chat with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern. If you've got a question for the congressman, you can send it our way, thefab413@nepm.org.
Like you do every week.
Yes.
Because you might have some questions about the things that have gone on.
Yes, perhaps the thing that's about to happen in the Rose Garden in 3 minutes from right now.
Oh, boy.
I'm sure you'll hear all about it on All Things Considered. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Clee Smith. We will talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.
And feel what I forgot how to feel. Innocent love, innocent furious love, shot down.